I went camping with my friends, and a stranger joined our group unnoticed. I was the first to notice an extra person had joined our group. I counted 6 of us sitting around the campfire. But I knew we had left home with 5. The 6th person had joined us somewhere along the way. But where and when exactly, I could not be sure. I remember double-checking the seats when we first piled into the cars back home. 5 total, no more, no less. Yet now, my mind spun as I realized the head count was off. It was like a quiet puzzle piece, slipping into place when no one was looking. I started to question my own sanity. Had I been so distracted that an entire person merged into our group unannounced? All the glowing faces looked familiar, like I had known them all for a lifetime. That was why it took so long to find the man out of place. A few hours earlier, we had been joking about old crushes, teachers who used to torment us with pop quizzes, and the weird times we had in high school. That sense of camaraderie made everyone's face feel strangely right. But something poked at my brain, an odd feeling that one more figure than necessary had squeezed around the flickering campfire. I had to go through the faces one by one. I went through my history with them, recounting how I met them, how I knew them. I fit each one into my memories like puzzle pieces. At some point, I quietly murmured to myself, Ben? Yeah, 1st grade. Mark and Sarah in 10th. Justine came in 7th grade from Chicago. I ticked off these facts as though reminding myself of a math formula. Everything matched, except for the face that lurked on the edge of the fire's glow. First, there was Mark. He was sitting next to Sarah, chatting her up as always. I met Mark and Sarah 6 years ago in the 10th grade. Mark and I played wide receiver together on the school football team. Sarah was a cheerleader, and Mark always had a thing for her. The 3 of us started hanging out after games, Mark flirting nonstop, and Sarah always hilariously rebuking him after a while. I can still recall a time Mark tried to impress Sarah by leaping over a fence after a football practice, only to catch his shorts on the top and tumble headlong into a hedge. Sarah nearly died laughing. And after that, her mockery of him became a running joke in the group. The memory warmed me for a second, even with the unease chilling my thoughts. Then there was Ben. We had been best friends since the 1st grade, inseparable ever since we bumped heads playing tag during recess. He had his arm around his longtime girlfriend, Justine. She started at our school when she moved from Chicago in the 7th grade. Ben sat next to her in English, and soon she became a part of our group at the time. She was quiet and shy when she first arrived, but once we got to know her, she opened up. She was one of the coolest and nicest people you could ever get to meet. She had also become close with Sarah in the past few years. I glanced over at Ben, resting his chin on Justine's shoulder. He had a habit of whispering silly jokes only she could hear. Sometimes Justine would erupt in unexpected giggles, and nobody knew why. Watching them now, I wished I could focus on the simple joy in that moment, but I kept counting heads, anticipating that extra presence in the flickering shadows. And then there was the 6th face, the piece that did not fit. I stared at him, and his name escaped me. That is if I ever had it in my memory banks in the first place. He looked familiar, but I could not place him in my memories. But why, if I recognized him, could I not remember his name? Why did he sit among us, acting as if he belonged? He stared at Mark and Sarah as they chatted. He laughed when they laughed, smiled when they smiled. It was unnerving, like he was mimicking their reactions just a half-second behind schedule. I tried to catch his eyes, but he would look away whenever I did. A wave of confusion gnawed at me. Maybe my mind was playing tricks, but something about him was so artificial, as though he followed a script of how humans should behave. I couldn't figure it out. The question burned in my head. How had he, a stranger, joined our little group without any of us noticing something amiss? Yo, Porter! Ben pulled me from my thoughts. Your head up in the clouds or something? I was just telling Justine about our 5th grade teacher. What was his name again? Mr. Smith, I said. Oh yeah, Mr. Smith. I was telling Justine how you could rile that guy up like nobody else. Remember that time you handed in an assignment printed in yellow ink? Ben and Justine laughed. Ben winked at me. You always had a flair for the dramatic, man. Poor Mr. Smith had no idea how to handle you. Even as I cracked a small grin, my mind kept drifting back to the unknown figure. Yeah, I remember, I said. I can still see the steam coming out of his ears. They laughed again, and I joined in half-heartedly. When I glanced the strange man's way, he was watching us, grinning. He was always watching, always on the periphery, never partaking. Part of the reason he had flown under the radar. It struck me that he never really joined a conversation, never initiated so much as a hi. Instead, he inserted a nod or a chuckle at precisely the right beats. That was enough to camouflage him if nobody was paying attention. I was struck with the sense that he was studying us. My skin crawled. Ben drained his beer and threw the empty can in the cooler. Well, I gotta take a leak, he said, and walked into the woods, swallowed up by the dark. You really know how to push people's buttons when you want to, huh? Justine said. I shrugged. I was having trouble focusing on the conversation. The weight of the situation, the reality of it, was starting to hit me. Behind Justine, I saw the strange man shift in his seat. It looked like he was practicing subtle expressions. Eyebrows up, then furrowed, then back to neutral, almost as if trying them on for size. A chill rattled my spine. A strange man had attached himself to our group unnoticed. And who the fuck knew what his motivations were? Questions raced through my mind. None I could answer. How had no one else noticed yet? Why had it taken me so long to notice? Was I going insane? Did I have amnesia and forget this one friend of ours? What in the hell was going on here? The strange man stood with jerkiness. I gotta take a leak, he said. It was the first time I heard him talk. He spoke with an odd lisp. It sounded as if he had to force the words from his throat. He walked with an awkward gait and, like Ben, disappeared behind the dark veil of the trees. No one else flinched. Sarah had started talking about a pop singer she loved back in high school, and Mark was teasing her about it. Their easy banter drowned out the alarm bells in my head. I caught Justine's eye. She seemed half aware that something was off, but couldn't place what it was. Justine kept talking. I always loved the long relationship you and Ben have. It was so hard moving cities and leaving all my old friends behind. I mean, I can't complain too much. I wouldn't have met Ben and all you guys otherwise. Justine, don't you see what's going on here? Huh? You're telling me you haven't noticed? Notice what, Porter? What are you talking about? Who was that guy? I gestured to the vacated spot the strange man left behind. Oh, him, She trailed off. She frowned into the fire. I could see her mind ticking over, and her eyes twinged with concern. I knew I wasn't going crazy. I don't know, she said. Who is it? That's what I'm trying to figure out. We stared at each other. Maybe... Justine was cut off. An ear-piercing screech came from the woods. It sounded like a shrill, injured cat. A large cat. The sound split the air and cut our conversations short. A blanket of silence fell over the four of us. Only the crackling campfire persisted. The woods were still and quiet. My heart hammered. Mark and Sarah immediately turned toward the trees, as if expecting an actual mountain lion or something. Justine tensed so much she nearly dropped her phone. At that moment, I realized Ben and the stranger were both out there. The fuck was that? Mark broke the silence. I don't know, Sarah said. I've never quite heard an animal like that before. Sounded like some fucked up mountain lion, Justine said. You ever heard anything like that before, Porter? I shook my head. My fingers tingled with adrenaline. Ben was still in the woods, and the strange man was out there with him. Dread filled my gut. There's no mountain lions out here, Mark said. It's probably an elk. They can make some creepy sounds, Sarah agreed. Justine bit her lip and scanned the woods. It's probably okay. I think Mark's right, I said to her, but I wasn't sure I believed it. Some primal alarm inside my head told me things were far from okay. That screech echoed with a wrongness I couldn't explain. We tried to calm ourselves, but the hush that followed felt heavier than before. Mark and Sarah had started up their conversation again when the strange man bumbled out of the woods. They paid him no mind. I was hoping something would have triggered in them by now, but they were oblivious. The strange man took a beer from the cooler. He fumbled with it, struggling with the tab. It was as if he had never opened a can before. When he finally had it open, he sat, beer in hand, and continued to watch Mark and Sarah, a thin smile on his face. He never did take a sip. From where I sat, I noticed his neck twitch every few seconds, like a tick. He seemed to time his fake laughs with Mark's jokes. But if Mark paused mid-sentence, the stranger's delayed laughter would ring out a second too late. My mouth felt dry. I watched him from across the campfire, his head wavering behind the heat. I touched on what made me uneasy about this strange man, aside from the fact he had managed to infiltrate our group without any of us noticing for a long time. He moved with jerkiness and awkwardness, like a newborn animal. Nothing he did was smooth or well-practiced. It made everything he did look like an act, an imitation. I didn't make the connection at the time, but I should have seen this man was not quite human. Yet, part of me refused to accept a supernatural explanation. I thought maybe he was an unhinged drifter, or a severely awkward friend of a friend, but that gut feeling kept flaring up, insisting this was bigger than mere human weirdness. But at the moment, I wasn't sure what to think. I guess I just thought he was a freak. I considered calling him out. Then and there, I wanted to ask him just what the fuck he was doing, but I'll admit I was scared. I had visions of this guy being some horrific serial killer, and I didn't know how dangerous he was or if he was armed. I didn't want to push him into doing something drastic that got us all killed. Right then, Sarah suggested playing a short game of Never Have I Ever. Mark agreed, eager to share a few wild confessions. Justine nodded, though she kept glancing at me nervously. The stranger said nothing, but offered a tight grin as though waiting for an invitation. I dreaded the idea of him participating, listing bizarre statements that could unravel us further. As time went by without any sign of Ben, I became convinced the strange man had done something to him. I watched him plotting, planning, and marking his next target. Anger sprouted from my fear, and I started to see red. I needed to stop him. We used an axe to chop firewood for our campfire, and it was leaning against my seat. This man was dangerous. I was sure of it. I convinced myself I needed to do something before another one of us was next. My heartbeat thundered. Images of me swinging that axe in panic flashed through my head. I didn't want violence, but my instincts demanded I be ready. I clutched at the axe's handle. The smooth wood felt reassuring in my hand. Justine touched my arm. "Porter, where's Ben? I'm getting nervous." "It's okay," I lied, patting her hand. "I'm sure everything is okay." I stood with axe in hand. "I'm going to get some more firewood," I announced more awkwardly than I hoped. Okay, dude," Mark said. "Porter?" Justine's voice wavered. As I rose, I noticed the stranger's gaze flick instantly to me, like a predator sensing potential threat. My pulse hammered so loud I could barely hear anything else. Speaking up was a mistake. I had drawn the attention of the strange man. I walked past him, trying to act as nonchalant as possible, but I was never a good actor. He watched me the whole way. He maintained his glare as I reached the perimeter of the woods. And as he looked back, his head rotated around an unnatural distance. That was enough to chill my spine. In my periphery, I saw Sarah say something to Mark about me acting weird, but I couldn't focus on them. My eyes were locked on the stranger's twisted posture. I was hoping he would turn around, to look away and give me an opening, but he never did. I'm not exactly sure what happened next. I never saw him stand up and walk over to me. I never even saw him move a single muscle. But in an instant, he was standing in front of me, inches away from my face. It was as if he teleported. My mind scrambled to fill the gap. There was no blur of motion, no sound of footsteps. One moment, the stranger sat near the fire. The next, he was right in front of me. My chest tightened with terror. A metallic smell stung my nose. The strange man stunk of blood and copper. The axe trembled in my hand. Any thought of actually using it fled my mind. I locked into place, my skin covered in goosebumps. Power radiated off him. He spoke to me. "Get some firewood," he said in his forced tone, and he smiled wide. At that moment, Ben emerged from the woods. "Ben!" Justine cried, her voice shaking with relief. I nearly collapsed from the jolt of adrenaline leaving my body. The stranger's wide grin flickered to something more neutral. "Jesus," Ben said as Justine squeezed him. "Did you guys hear that cat thing?" "We think it was an elk," Mark said. "Where were you? Why did you take so long?" Justine asked. Ben frowned, scratching his head. "I got turned around, okay? My phone died, and I couldn't see the campfire. For a minute, I thought I heard footsteps following me, but maybe it was just my imagination. I guess I wandered too far off and I lost sight of the campfire. Took me a bit to find my way back. For a second, I thought I was going to have to freeze my ass off out there alone tonight. The relief washed over my body like a wave, crashing into my muscles. I felt each one relax. At least Ben was safe. I looked for the strange man, but he was gone. He somehow slinked away while I was distracted. He was good at going undetected when he wanted to. My thoughts turned to getting out of there. Even though Ben was unharmed, that guy was still trouble. I started back towards the group and caught the middle of their conversation. "I don't know, actually." "Yeah, who was that guy?" Ben said. "I thought he was with you guys," Sarah said. "Yeah, isn't he your friend?" Mark added. "I thought he drove over with you three." "No," Ben said. "I don't know who he is." The panic spread over everyone's faces. They were finally feeling what I was feeling. The realization had set in. Our small circle's mood changed in an instant. Mark's bravado faded. Sarah clutched at her jacket, and Justine's eyes brimmed with questions. We were all recalling that subtle presence, that man who had simply joined us as if by right. "We need to get out of here," I said. "Before he comes back." "Yes, please," Justine said. "We have to leave now. That guy was a freak. Right, Porter?" "Yeah," I said. I explained to them how I noticed he was the odd man out when we were sitting around the fire. I explained the odd behavior, and they all agreed the guy was strange and possibly dangerous. None of us could pinpoint exactly when he had joined the group. He had slipped in unnoticed and unaccounted for. It was uncanny. We packed our tents in record time. We trekked the 15 minutes to our cars through dark woods, flashlights in hand. We heard the screech of the elk again. If it was an elk, which I have my doubts about now, and we took some comfort from the fact it sounded farther away. Even so, we picked up our pace for the final stretch of the walk. There were no jokes, no casual chatter. Each of us flinched at the smallest sound. Several times, Mark muttered curses under his breath, clearly spooked. None of us asked about that strange screech again. We just wanted out. I felt like I could finally relax behind the wheel and locked doors of my SUV. Justine and Ben sat in the back, while Mark and Sarah followed behind in Mark's beaten-up Ford Laser. We were heading out of the woodland and were planning to shack up in a motel for the night, before heading home in the morning. Ben whispered to Justine that this was the creepiest trip of his life. Justine clutched his arm, nodding. I tried to focus on driving, my heart still pounding from the earlier terror. In my mind, all I pictured was that stranger's grin. I thought we were free and clear. We wound our way around the dark roads that snaked through woods. I let a smile open up my face when we finally reached the exit road. It was an arrow-straight stretch of asphalt that split through the last few miles of woodland. I pressed on the accelerator. In my rearview mirror, I saw Mark's headlights dart close. He probably felt the same way, just wanting to put as much distance as possible between us and that campsite. I couldn't wait to get the hell out of there, and I think Mark was feeling the same way, because he sat close on my rear bumper. I remember thinking, at least we'll have a strange tale to tell after all this. I didn't think it was about to turn into a horror story. The trees and the dashed lines on the road blurred past us. My headlights reached out for the seemingly endless road, and my speedometer needled its way towards 100 miles per hour. I don't know what possessed me to go that fast, and I wish Mark didn't follow my lead. It was a mistake. A tiny voice in my head screamed to slow down, but fear and desperation to escape overshadowed caution. The engine roared, my palms slick on the steering wheel. The strange man appeared from behind a tree. He walked into the middle of my lane. I slammed the brakes. It was too late. Everything happened in a flash. 1 second, the road was empty. The next, that figure was there, stepping forward calmly like he had all the time in the world. My stomach dropped. The next sequence of events happened so fast it plays like a slideshow in my mind. The tires screeched, and there was a smell of burning rubber. The strange man folded over my bonnet and got sent flying down the road. He skated across the pavement on his back, moving with such speed it looked as if he was gliding on ice. More tire screeching. I caught a glimpse of Mark's headlights swerving violently. He tried to avoid hitting me or the man, whoever or whatever he was. My heart lurched, and I struggled to maintain control of my SUV. Mark flew past in the opposite lane, fishtailing. He fought it, and for a moment I thought he had it saved, but the car hooked right into the trees. The sickening sound of crunching metal reverberated in the air. Mark's car slammed into a tree, driver side first, sending fragments of glass and metal flying. The car bounded off one tree and into another. The front passenger side impacted this time. The front light exploded, and the passenger side cavity caved in, sending a wheel bounding into the woods. I could barely see through my tears as I forced my SUV to a stop. My breath caught in my throat. Justine screamed something, but I couldn't register it. I was locked in my own shock. The crumpled heap of a car came to a rest. Justine was the first out the door, crying out Sarah's name. Ben went after her, and I followed after him. Everything felt surreal as shock coursed through my body. It was as if I was watching through a screen. I floated over the asphalt as Justine and Ben sprinted towards the steaming wreckage. The crash scene dimly lit by my SUV's one remaining headlight. No nightbirds. No wind. Just the echo of my ragged breathing and the hissing of Mark's ruined car. Each step felt like wading through mud, my legs weak from terror. There are two screams I'll never forget. They imprinted themselves on my brain, and I'll hear their echoes at night forever. If I happen to get Alzheimer's later in life, I know the last thing to go will be these screams. The first one I heard when I was 13. It came from my mother. It flooded the house, splashing off the walls. I ran out of my room to see her crumpled at the front door, with 2 police officers standing by. They had notified her that her eldest son, my brother, had died. The second came from Justine when she saw what was waiting for us in that Ford Laser. Her eyes locked onto the twisted metal, and her wail pierced the night. She yelled Sarah's name again, raw panic ripping her voice. I stumbled toward the passenger side. Mark was unrecognizable. He was a shattered mess of bone, skin, and blood, melded and intertwined with the crumpled steel. Sarah was blinking slowly, her breathing labored, her one arm shattered, broken in too many places to count. Her legs crushed at knees from the front of the car, which crumpled back into her leg space. Her legs would have been flat if I could see them. Ben tried to yank the door open, but it was hopelessly jammed. He shouted Sarah's name, tears streaking his face. The weight of Mark's death hit us like a train. I felt my stomach knot so tightly I almost vomited. Justine turned away and fell to her knees, face buried in her hands, shoulders heaving. Ben tried to comfort her, but he had to turn away and throw up off the side of the road. I pulled out my phone and struggled to dial 911. With my fingers shaking, I kept pressing the wrong numbers. My voice was small and distant as I explained what happened to the operator. She told me to stay on the line, but as I looked down the road, I dropped my phone. The strange man was standing there. He was silhouetted by the faint glow of my SUV's lights. That grin spread across his face again, impossibly wide. My heart lurched, burning with rage and grief. His grin reached from ear to ear, showing a grandstand of teeth. His shoulders shrugged up and down as if he was laughing. In fact, the fucker was laughing. I wanted to charge him, wanted to tear him apart with my bare hands, but shock locked my muscles in place. Tears blurred my vision. My mouth opened in a silent scream. If I were not in shock, I would have gone after him right then and there. I would have torn his heart, if he has one, right from its chest, but all I could do was stare, mouth agape, struggling to keep the tears behind my eyes. The strange man started for the woods. I watched him go and I watched him change. I saw it. I know I did. This was no illusion, no trick of the mind. This was real. I saw him shapeshift, his silhouette distorted, limbs stretching in unnatural angles. A sense of unimaginable wrongness radiated from him. There was the faint outline of horns, the hint of a hunched back. My mind reeled. I saw its true form. We were not dealing with something human that night. After countless hours of research, I believe I saw what others have called the goatman. Its horns stuck out unevenly from its head. Its grinning snout bared rows of sharp teeth, and walking upright, like a man with an awkward gait, it vanished into the shrouded woods. Even after it was gone, I thought I heard phantom laughter echoing in my ears. I collapsed to my knees, the operator's voice crackling from the phone at my feet. Mark was gone, Sarah hung between life and death, and a nightmare had just sauntered out of sight. It has been 8 months since that night. I've only seen my friends a handful of times since then. Our relationships have shattered and are left in ruin. All we are now to each other is a stark reminder of that night. Mark is dead. Sarah survived, but as a triple amputee. Justine and Ben broke up. And here I am, rugged with a scraggly beard and uncut hair after spending every sleepless night researching the monstrosity I saw that night, the Goatman. Late-night message boards are my new home. People talk about the Goatman, claiming it can mimic voices, slip into gatherings, sow chaos just for fun. A few share secondhand stories of someone losing their mind after encountering the horned trickster. I used to think these were urban legends. Now I know better. I'm going back to those woods. So help me God, I'm going back. I'm coming for the goat man. And I'm not stopping until one of us is dead. Since the crash, I've had strange dreams where I see Mark alive, telling me it's not my fault, but then his face rots away and morphs into that goatish grin. Sometimes I hear Sarah screaming in the background. Other nights, I dream of the campfire, and the sixth person is me, as though I've replaced the monster in the circle. It's eating me alive. I've spent months planning my return, collecting anything that might hurt that thing. I've read unhinged diaries from alleged survivors who mention silver bullets, old runes, or dead languages. I'm not sure what to believe, but I'm gathering all I can. I owe it to Mark, Sarah, Ben, and Justine, even though we barely speak anymore. That night ripped us apart, and I'd rather die trying to stop this monster than let it roam free. I found a battered journal from the 1940s that described a shapeshifter in the same region, one that mirrored entire families until it lured them away. The final entry mentioned a vow. Better to face it with steel in hand than wait for it to call again. I think about that line constantly. Every day, I test my nerves, forcing myself to recall the detail of that grin so I never forget what I'm fighting. The nightmares, the research, the guilt, everything pushes me back to those woods. I hear Mark's voice in my head, telling me not to be a coward. I see Sarah's broken body, a price we all paid for crossing paths with that inhuman fiend, and I know I can't walk away from this. Whatever the Goatman truly is, I'll confront it on its own ground. Maybe I'll fail and join Mark. Or maybe I'll end the creature's twisted existence once and for all. Either way, I'm done living in fear. One of us has to die, and I'm determined to ensure it's not me.